Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. news, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast.
Welcome to tonight's episode where Mark loses his headphones while headbanging to the intro music.
I mean, are you really headbanging if you don't lose your headphones at the same time?
Yeah. That's the one thing I miss about having long hair. Headbanging was so much more dramatic.
Oh God, yeah.
It was great.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra, the singers, they gotta have the long hair so they can do the hair flip. When they do the certain numbers. I mean, that's part of the choreography.
The hair flip is part of the choreography.
The hair flip is part of it, man. That's totally part of it.
Somebody with long hair or someone with short hair is going to file some kind of a lawsuit over not being hired.
Do it, I guess.
I'm an awesome dancer. They didn't hire me because my hair's too short.
You can't do the hair flip. You got to be able to do the hair flip.
The hair flip, it's part of it. Anyway, welcome to tonight's episode, folks. I'm your host, Nate, and I am joined tonight by he who shall lose his headphones, Mr. Uncle Mark.
That's like my Indian name?
Sure. Now it's your Indian name.
Dances with wolves, loses his headphones?
Yeah, loses his headphones.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we went live. We went live on time for a change. Isn't that weird?
We did. My Indian name when I lived with my parents was He Who Lifts Heavy Things, because my mother would just make me move all the heavy objects in the house. Dances with Wolves came out when I still lived at home, so that's, now you got me going down that rabbit hole. Anyway. So what are we doing?
What are we doing? We're going to do a show tonight. Sorry, I was responding to somebody in chat. This is the downside to having interactive streams and stuff in our lives, because it's all distracting. There's distracting stuff everywhere. So you might remember that it's January, and there was a year that just passed, 2021. It's now the New Year's. So Happy New Year, everybody.
2021, the year that everything was going to go much better.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say things improved, but it could have been better. Could have been better. I've already heard, I mean, first of all, one of my pet peeves is folks who think that New Year's Day somehow actually resets anything. Like, it's all a mindset. It's all...
It's arbitrary.
Yeah,
I get that.
Like, calendars are man-made, and yes, they follow the seasons and the solstices and whatever, but the idea that somehow rolling from 2020 to 2021 was going to, make the pandemic vanish, for example, that wasn't going to happen. It was never going to happen. But everybody thought it was, and then when it didn't, they're like, 2021 blows. Well, no, I mean, it's just kind of...
No, just the people feeling it blow.
Time marches on. But anyway, we are... It is compulsory for anyone who has any kind of a media creation, like a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever. You have to make some kind of a year in review show, either at the end of the previous year or the beginning of the next one. And since we are now at the beginning of 2022 and at the end of 2021, we did not do a review show. We're going to do one now.
Right. Did we do a show on Christmas Adam?
We did.
I don't even remember what we talked about.
In fact, that was the episode where I learned that the word Christmas Adam is a thing that anybody uses, because J-Scar was in chat and called it Christmas Adam. I
think I'm going to say that J-Scar might have made that up. Now, he might have gotten it from somebody, but that's the first time I had ever heard it.
It's the first time I ever heard it. But yeah, we talked about the metaverse, remember?
Oh, right. Stupid
right?
Zuckerberg. Anyway.
And we talked about in the new year how we were going to try to look into starting our own little community of practice about open metaverse.
Yeah. You done anything about that yet?
I went so far as to reach out to the folks in the existing community of practice for gaming, to which no one responded to. But that was just yesterday. I'm going to give it time.
Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play.
So anyway, we should do that. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about 2021 in tech. So we're not going to do like the clip show that comes at the end of the season of your favorite sitcom.
Yeah. Specifically, we're doing 2021 and hashtag nerd life.
Hashtag nerd life.
About tech.
It's not just about tech. You're right. We got some cultural stuff in here. We got some technology stuff in here. It's going to be a good ride.
I hope.
I
Well,
hope.
it's going to be a ride. We know
It'll
that.
be a ride. It'll be a ride through our memories of 2021. So, 2021 was, I mean, I'll wager that it was a better year than 2020. Do you agree?
Yeah. Fundamentally, it was because things started to kind of get a little more normal, especially in the summer. Obviously, we have more tools to combat COVID-19, even though too many people don't use them all. But
Yeah.
I don't want to start. I don't want to start that discussion. But I think overall, yeah, 2021 uh, was better. Now, 2021 started with an insurrection in the United States at the very beginning, so it
Yeah.
only could get better from that.
Yeah.
But
There is
yeah,
something to be said for setting the bar low in the beginning of the
yeah,
year.
we had a really crappy start. Yeah, right.
I mean,
Um,
I'll say that it was exciting and almost terrifying to watch that unfold. Um,
yeah, I don't. Exciting is not the first word I would use. I
well, I
think I
don't
almost
I don't mean
puked.
exciting in a amusement park
Yeah,
ride sort of way, but
it's
exciting in a um,
exciting like when the weather guy realizes there's deadly tornadoes coming, but that's like his thing, so he gets to report on them.
I'm not even looking at exciting in a positive light. It's more like exciting from
Oh
the
yeah,
very base term where it's like adrenaline style, like oh my
okay,
god, what's about to go down?
right. Holy
Exciting.
shit, this is really happening.
Yeah,
Like,
like when you witness a car crash. You don't want to see a car crash, but it's exciting.
right. I
Not in a good
remember.
way.
Yeah, when 9/11 happened, I was in Rahway, New Jersey,
Yeah.
which was like we were close enough that we could smell the city burning and
Yeah.
saw the smoke come up. My dad was on the Hudson. He was in Jersey City
Wow.
because he moved a boat because he was doing his side work of being a captain. He saw the second plane hit the tower.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that type of exciting. Yes, it's
Yeah,
something you
right.
realize that something big is going down, and
Right. Right.
holy crap! Like, pinch me, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that you make that connection. That is the correlation to 9/11 because that was I was chatting with some folks. I think it was in the DEF CON group because we were supposed to have a meetup that night and we ended up postponing it a week because we didn't know. I mean, just we didn't know. Like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we should cancel, postpone, whatever. So we just decided to err on the side of caution. But anyway, I was chatting with those guys and a number of us said this feels like 9/11. Like it had that same air about it, had that same feeling to it, even
that
though
sinking, oh crap
yeah,
feeling. Yeah,
yeah. And really I guess that's the only two times in my life that I can recall anything like that happening to our country, right? So that's probably why
yeah.
it was a similar
In,
feeling.
in the grand scheme of human history, you and I have lived at a time of relative normalcy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's been the ever since 9/11, you had like the background hum of the war in Afghanistan and then Iraq and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, when you talk about generational defining things like World War II, World War One, like this pandemic is basically our generation's Vietnam War, but even worse. I think in a lot of ways, because Vietnam, yeah, people lost friends, they lost family because they got drafted, they got shipped to Vietnam, they got killed, they got
Yeah.
mentally screwed up.
Uh-huh.
But you had the luxury of not having to go. Not everybody had to go to Vietnam. We as Americans have all had to live through this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is going to be the thing that our kids like talk about, just like our grandparents and great grandparents who lived through like the depression. You always think of that. That's a grandma hoards peanut shells because she lived through the depression
Yeah.
and she burned them for heat. I just totally made that up. I have no idea, but I have to imagine someone's grandmother did that.
No, I mean it's and we've already rabbit trailed, but I guess this is kind of
Right.
related.
Remember
But
we talked about, are we gonna have enough content?
yeah, right.
Clearly. Yeah.
But
So shitty start,
yeah, yeah.
but let's talk about nerd life because
Yeah,
a
let's
lot
do
of
that.
interesting nerd life things have been going on.
It did. So we've kind of broken this up into sections, and you know us, we're going to jump all over the place. But we're going to start with hardware, right? And the first thing that I thought that stands out about hardware in 2021 was that the Framework laptop finally entered production to the point where you can just go order one and it will ship in a reasonable amount of time. In fact, I think that landmark may have happened right at the end of 2021, where it was like, we're caught up, we can ship these out now. And I know J-Scar, who frequently attends our show and has been on the show a few times, he has one. He got it back in like October. And if you're not familiar with the Framework laptop, it is a laptop that is designed to be not just like sleek and usable and look like any other laptop on the market, but also repairable and upgradable. All the modules are these little cards you can slide in and out. They use like a USB-C, I think, backplane so that they're modular. Even the motherboard inside of the thing can be taken out and replaced. The screen, the keyboard. Being that I recently went through a case where my laptop screen died and I ended up buying a new machine because of it, I can say that I'm kind of excited about where Framework could go, right?
Sure.
If anybody knows anybody from Framework and wants them to get on the show, I've been talking to them, but like most companies, they have like a media person, and works sort of in line, right? So if you know anybody at Framework and you want to hear them interviewed on the show, mention the show to them.
Because we're this
and
tiny
see
little
if we can get,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah, see if we can get bumped up. I don't know if they'll ever be on the show. I think it'd be cool to talk to them. I'm not trying to get like a free laptop or anything out of them. I think
You're not trying to play the influencer card?
right. I like what
You
they're
just wanna
doing.
talk to 'em.
I like what they're doing. I want to get them in front of more people if we can, even if it's just like 100 folks or whatever. I don't know, you know. So anyway, that was my first thing, and that's a very positive thing.
That
Now
is
we have
positive.
some relatively negative things. You want to go into the next one?
I can talk about it. So framework, and the framework stuff might be something that our listeners might be familiar with, right? But that to me is going to be more. That's like a smaller type thing that's not like widely known.
Mm-hmm.
This next topic is something that has impacted, I want to say, everybody who has any sort of interest in technology. And that's because of obviously the challenges the past couple of years. We're facing a global chip shortage as well as supply chain issues, which is really causing like a problem with getting to build and use our toys, right?
Yeah.
Add to that, uh, whenever retailers get stock, if they don't take protective measures, scalpers tend to swoop in, buy up the stock, and then resell for fat profit. So we have people like Icon has PS5. Nah.
Nope.
Icon has new Xbox. Nah. Icon has video card. And video cards themselves have been a challenge for a while because not only do you have the chip shortage, but prior to that, you had shortages because of crypto.
Yep.
And crypto is the kind of thing that, in my opinion, has effectively totally jumped the shark and has become Mary Kay for bros. You know, it's basically an MLM for people, but instead of makeup, you're investing in crypto because, quite frankly, a lot of people don't understand it. It's obviously the not being regulated. It's a big deal. And the reality is, I don't think you can make money on crypto if you're paying for the electricity to mine it yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
Most the
most
ability
people making money mining or sucking off someone else's power.
the ability to mine cryptocurrencies for the average person kind of went away like probably a decade ago almost, right? When Bitcoin was still new, and you could mine it, but it wasn't worth anything then. So nobody would. So the people that were doing it were like enthusiasts. They did it because they thought this is neat. We think it might be a thing in the future, right?
Maybe I can buy a pizza with it.
Yeah, right. Maybe someday I'll be able to use this digital currency to do a thing. And then, of course, crypto, or I should say not crypto specifically, but Bitcoin blew up. That we're talking, what, 5 years ago now, I guess. Maybe a little less than that. And it went from almost nothing to like 8-10 grand a coin. I think it was even higher than that at one point. It was like, wasn't it up to like 20K at one point?
Something like that. And I had I have a guy who I met. I no longer associate with him because he's crazy. But he was convinced he had these Bitcoin mining rigs set up in his house, and he didn't pay for his own electricity because the deal he and his wife had with this house. So he was basically being able to mine for just the cost of hardware, and he was convinced that Bitcoin was going to go to $250,000 per coin.
Yeah.
And he was basically staking his financial future on just mining Bitcoin. And And what you can see is, like, I have a cousin who's a bit of an idiot who has totally bought into like the crypto investing, and it's ridiculous. You
Yeah,
know,
at the time that it blew up, I remember reading about it, and not because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was curious. Like, can you still mine a Bitcoin? Can you still generate your own basically money out of Bitcoin, right?
if you don't need to pay for the power, yes.
And even then, it was like, sure, but you need to live in a place or set up a cryptocurrency mining rig in a place where electricity is below X, and the places on Earth where electricity costs less than X are like Antarctica, right? It was like a few places where almost no one lives, and you need to you need to have it set up in a place where you can cool it on something other than electricity. So you need to use like geothermal, or you need to be in Antarctica where like the cool air outside can be used to cool your mining rig, because otherwise the power and cooling of it negates the cost, or negates
Right.
the price that you'll get, or the return on it, right? Now, that wasn't always the case. There was a point where you could certainly mine Bitcoins, and I'm kicking myself because when it came out, I was curious about cryptocurrency. I may have even had a Bitcoin or two, but damned if I can remember where I put them, or if the wallet even exists anymore, or if it ever even really existed, and it's just my brain being like, I remember looking at this. Did I do anything with it?
Yeah, who the heck? So, so obviously this chip shortage has been brutal. Now there are some happy endings. I was able to get a PS5 right before Christmas
hmm
because GameStop is starting to get more of a supply. Sony sent me an email yesterday to buy one direct. They've sent me a few times. The first time I was in the air flying home from Disney, so by the time I landed and read it, it was too late. Um, but I was actually able to use this today to buy one of our buddies a PS5, and he just Venmoed me the money for it.
Yeah,
So
that's
there
pretty
are
cool.
there are some happy endings with some of this.
Yeah, yeah. And this, I mean, you sort of introed this section by saying that it was more of a technology thing, and yes, it is at its core. But this is affecting so many industries. I mean,
Cars.
car manufacturers were having trouble producing cars because they couldn't get the chips they needed to power, or not power, to control the computer controlled bits of
Yeah.
modern day cars, because they're so automated. I mean, even the simplest of vehicles now has so much computer control in it that they couldn't get the chips to do that, which is just crazy when you think about it.
So, you got supermarkets who are short on potato chips, and you've got computer stuff which is short on silicon chips. So many chip shortages. And again, this is something that the supply chain stuff, you don't feel it immediately when the crisis happens, and the
Right.
crisis, of course, would be mostly COVID. Um, and then there's some other socioeconomic stuff going on, like people realizing that they don't need to work for really crappy wages. They can quit their crappy job and get a better job
Yep.
because you just had so many. You had 800,000 people die. You had other people retiring,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the economy's shaken up by everything going on. So yeah, it's going to take a long time to recover from all this.
Yeah.
So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
I mean, we had there's I mean, this is gonna sound like a completely off the wall story, but there's a Pizza Hut in the next town over from me, and it's been there as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, probably since the '60s or '70s. That Pizza Hut has been there,
Hmm.
and since the shutdowns, or since the lockdowns, they haven't had their dining room open, and it's not because they're afraid to have customers in. It's because they don't have the staffing to staff the dining room, right? And I don't know if it's for good or not, but a friend of mine told me just earlier today that they went to order something from that Pizza Hut and it's closed. So it may be closed for good, or maybe they just aren't open on Thursdays anymore. I don't know, but
Wow.
that seems like an indicator, that we're not through the economic problems that came, both from the pandemic and a whole bunch of other social things that are going on right now, between minimum wages and pay problems, and whatever. people are saying that some of the supply shortages are still from that barge that got stuck in the canal. Remember, like 6-8
I
months ago?
remember.
They're
Oh, yeah.
saying that caused a backup that is like we're still feeling repercussions from now,
That honestly doesn't surprise me.
which is pretty crazy.
What we saw happening 20, 30 years ago is we saw so many companies and industries transitioning to just-in-time inventory,
Hmm.
which is great because you're not sitting on a lot of inventory until your supply chain gets disrupted.
Right.
And then you're screwed because you have no surplus.
It comes down to a very similar kind of paradigm, right? To the way some of us live our lives versus some of the newer, or should I say, the younger generation live their lives, right? Some of us try to be prepared for things that are coming, and some of us try to live in the day, right? And there's benefits to both. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think that's a generational thing at this point. Maybe the Great Depression grandparents, it was generational. They were more prepared.
Could be.
I've seen people of every generation. Some are very responsible. They try and put aside several months of savings.
Hmm.
And I've seen people of every generation live paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes because they just got themselves in a hole, or that's just the way they are. So I think that's a mistake to ascribe that to a generation. I just think
Yeah,
there's
you could be
different
wrong. Or
personality
I could be
types.
wrong with that, but yeah, I guess it's just a different lifestyle type. But
Yeah. Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's money or food or just the abilities that you carry around with you every day, right? Like there's certain people who just walk around life trying to be prepared for as many things as they can, and there's certain people that walk through life just like, I don't need to carry a pocket knife. I'll be somewhere near a knife if I need
just
one,
use my
or
teeth.
I'll borrow one from someone, or I'll use my teeth. Yeah, right. Whereas I've carried a pocket knife since I was a Boy Scout. So we're talking 30 years I've had a pocket knife in my pocket because it comes in handy so often, right? And
I would like to carry a pocket knife more often, but I'm sometimes in places where if I'm carrying a pocket knife, I'm going to lose it
oh
because
yeah,
it'll be taken away from me.
yeah. Well, we had this conversation on the walk up to.
Did you keep your knife the night of the concert?
I
Or
did.
Did they
I
confiscate
did.
it?
It's
Okay,
still. Hold on.
good deal.
It's and I think the saving grace would it's such a tiny pocket knife,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't carry this big machete around with me. I used
I-
to. I used to have a
Nobody's-
larger knife, and
nobody's
I
saying,
yeah, it's
nobody's
like
saying you've got a sword strapped to your side. That's not at all what's going on.
right. Well, some people do that though. They'll walk around with like a fixed blade, 6-8 inch knife, like you would use to skin a deer with, right, on their belt all the time. I don't really understand that, but it's not nearly as useful as having a little pocket knife that has scissors and a toothpick and a little knife that's big enough to open a box. Anyway, we've now
Yep.
rabbit trailed again. The next thing from a hardware perspective that I wanted to talk about was the insane. In fact, here I'm going to lead with this. Anyone listening, think back to like Christmas Day. You're looking around Facebook. How many of your friends unwrapped an Oculus Quest 2?
I know I saw a few.
I mean, I know someone who I'm pretty sure not only got an Oculus Quest 2, but they also got a Valve Index, which I'm like, why? Why do you need both? Like, how did you end up with both?
That is a little weird.
But I know,
Maybe the Quest was for the kids.
yeah, I don't know. I can probably count 3 or 4 people that I know that recently got a Quest 2, and there's probably another 4 or 5 that already had them, right? And that to me stands out in 2021 because in 2020 VR was a thing that I was aware of, right? And I think you had it already. So like, but it was not commonplace. Like you might know someone that has a VR headset. You don't know 10 people that have them. I know 10 people that have them now, probably, right? I'm not counting everybody, but I know several people now that have made the jump into VR. And the Quest 2, as much as you may dislike the company behind them, or maybe you don't,
Especially today.
especially today because Mark is angry at Mr. Zuckerberg and his policies.
I got a ban.
But the idea that VR, which for so long was science fiction in our lives, is now so attainable that people are getting them under their Christmas tree, And it's not just one or two people that you know, or one or two people like in your extended friend network. It's a large number of people, right? And
Yeah.
I think that stands out just because it sort of shows you where things are going to, and this whole concept of a metaverse and the concept of virtual online worlds seems like
I think it's cool. We just got
yeah,
to make sure the Zuck doesn't win.
right, right. So, but yeah, so that's from a hardware perspective. The last point I had. Did you have anything to add to any of those points, or should we move along?
Move along. Move along. No,
Okay.
that's some good hardware stuff.
Unfortunately, all of our software stuff is terrible.
We continue to see security problems
Yep.
with software. Like the obviously I don't even remember all the security problems and breaches and stuff from 2021, but the big one that of course happened later in the year was Log4j,
Yep.
which was delightfully discovered when somebody hacked a Minecraft server and realized that by exploiting this logging stack, you could actually send commands and and do stuff.
It's just crazy. The whole idea that if I make your logger log this string, that string will then go through this other subroutine, which is meant to call out to LDAP, which is essentially what it was supposed to do, and I can use that to get a shell on your machine. Like
Well,
layers and layers here, guys.
that's the argument that's the one of the classic arguments that people make against System D.
Yeah, it's too
Which,
complicated. Yeah,
but yeah, the logger should just friggin' log.
it should write to files and nothing else. Yeah,
But
that's its job.
people write these plugins, these utilities, these whatever, and oh, we need all this integration and stuff. No, just pipe it. Everything's supposed to be a text file, and you pipe data that way, and or do this. But yeah, Log4j is it fell victim to the my friggin my logging thing had to interact with LDAP, which makes no sense. None, Jerry. But that points out, I think, a larger challenge that we see all the time. And every time something like this happens, someone does that meme, which is this giant, um, building block structure. And then what's holding it up in the corner is this tiny little block, which is this open source project that, two people work on. That used to be NTP. And I don't even know if NTP's gotten any better. But like Log4j, pretty important, but it's not shepherded by a corporation or someone with deep pockets. It's maintained by people who do it like as a hobby.
Yeah,
And yet you've got giant ass companies relying on it.
we're going to talk a little bit about this in the news because, I mean, anybody who's paid attention to the news for the past 2 weeks will know exactly what I'm referring to. But there was a similar incident in the news where, except that one was intentional, right? It was like someone
Yeah.
intentionally broke a piece of software or changed a piece of software to make a statement, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Log4j thing, and it's funny that XKCD comic, the one you're referring to, that has the big pile of software, and at the bottom, it's like, pick the library of the day, whatever you're picking on, and today it's Log4j.
Yeah. And oh, excuse me. I like to think that Red Hat, those of you who've listened for a while both realize that, Nate and I work for a company whose industry is taking open source software and trying to support it and make it commercially viable and stuff. I would hope that Red Hat helps and doesn't leave a huge number of developers hanging, that we take a level of responsibility.
Yeah, well, in many cases, we employ some of those developers.
We
right?
do.
I mean,
We absolutely do.
Things that are important. We actually either have Red Hat employees that are part of the communities that support those applications, or I mean, I guess there's probably cases where whoever the main developer of that application is gets offered a job. I don't even know. I don't know how that works exactly, but I know there are plenty of projects, like the Linux kernel, for example, where we have employees that are directly writing code for those projects. And there's a whole bunch of stuff around, trying to mitigate like conflicts of interest and stuff, I'm sure.
But it's a little nutty.
It is. It is a little nutty. And the other piece of terrible software, I shouldn't say it's terrible, but deep down, I still remember the Steve Ballmer days where Linux is a cancer. And I have trouble forgetting about that whenever I look at a new release of Windows. Windows 11 came out this year.
There.
Yeah.
So I've got a pretty banging system, and
Uh-huh.
it claims it can't run Windows 11.
You know,
Now,
Windows 10 was pretty darn good. And I really had no intention of moving to Windows 11. The laptop I was on, it never received an update that said, "Hey, you're going to Windows 11," like I know some people have or did. The new machine I got came with 11, and you know what? It's not that bad. It's Windows 10 with a slightly different UI skin. They changed around the control panel. There's some features that are a little different, but at its core, come on, Windows has not significantly changed from release to release in a very long time.
How deep do you have to dig before you get one of the really ugly control panels that looks like it's 20 years old?
Oh, I have to go look. It used to be the mouse settings. You'd get to the mouse settings, and there was the old Windows 3.x
You're like, holy
mouse
shit,
settings window.
Are they ever going to upgrade this UI?
I'll have to.
They just keep transferring the code over.
Maybe I'll look right now.
Device Manager's a good one. That one retrogrades really quickly, I think.
Change mouse settings. I forget where it was in here. There's one where it's like literally just direct copy from. In fact, this might be it that I'm looking at. It's just like the same old UI from Windows 3.
Right.
Yeah, the mouse properties. If you go to change mouse settings.
They haven't bothered.
Nope.
It looks a very obscure control panel that no one ever uses.
The mouse. Yeah, no one ever changes their mouse buttons or anything around, right?
Or the tracking speed or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, it looks like it's the same. Now, in Windows 10, it still had the old, you remember the Microsoft ergonomic mouse, the one that was curved?
Yeah.
It still had that picture in it when I did it on Windows
good.
10. Yeah. Now it has a more modernized
That's
mouse.
just generic mouse.
Maybe they saw my tweet about it when I found it several years ago, and they said we better change this now.
That's exactly what they did.
That's what happened.
I'm told if I flip a BIOS setting or two on my machine from people in the know that I might be able to install Windows 11.
Yeah,
but I don't actually care.
It had to do with the secure computing module or whatever, which is the little trusted enclave that's in your CPU that's meant to store things like encryption keys.
Yeah, I don't want to turn that on.
Yeah, no, and I don't blame you. I wouldn't change it if there was nothing compelling in Windows 11. Now, if the day comes that you can't run Windows 10 anymore, then you might have to look into it. But by then, it might be time for a new machine anyway, right?
I think so.
So, yeah, Windows 11, it's not so bad. It's really just like Windows 10, except slightly different UI.
Should that be their marketing logo?
Yeah.
Windows 11.
Yeah.
It's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
At least it's not Vista. At least it's not.
Yeah, Windows 11, at least it isn't Vista. We're sorry, guys. Now I need to make up a Windows 11 promo things that says it ain't so bad.
At least it's not Vista.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. And you and I talked about this earlier. Neither of us are truly excited about what happens in the mobile phone space or the smartphone space.
I couldn't give a hoot.
But it wouldn't be a review of technology for a year without mentioning two flagship phones that came out. Of course, Apple released a new iPhone. I think they do this at least once a year anyway. The iPhone 13 and the 13 Pro or whatever. If you want to pay as much for your phone as you might for a new laptop, you can get the 13 Pro. If you want a slightly more affordable phone, you can just get the iPhone 13, which only costs only $1,000 instead of $1,300 or whatever. And the Google Pixel 6, which I switched this year from my Pixel 4, I think that I had, to my wife's old iPhone 11. So I have trouble caring at this point about a new Google phone.
Yeah. I've been crapple for quite a few years now. This is 11.
It's like I like Android. I'm having more and more trouble with the company behind it.
Nah, screw those guys.
So like a
I like Apple's stance on encryption and
right.
privacy
So
much
if
better than Google, and to me that's important enough to stay away from Google.
I
That's my
could
phone.
get a clean de-Googleified Android experience
You
that
can.
was still functional
You can.
and didn't just feel like a hacky hobbyist phone, which is the way most of them feel, or all of them feel, I would probably still be on Android. But you can't. If you want all the integrations and whatnot of a Android device, you need to run Google's apps. And if you run
And as
Google's apps, then you've got all the spine that goes with them.
And as Junior Soprano points out, and I want to bang Angie Dickinson. Neither of those is happening.
So
Old school quoting.
yeah, I think the aggravating part is that it would be possible on Android to completely disconnect yourself from whatever ecosystem you don't like, but it's not possible because the industry doesn't want you to do it, and that's really
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah. So whatever. Enough about phones.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want a new phone, there's a Pixel 6 and an iPhone 13.
Go
And if you
go stand in line at dawn.
and
at
if
the
you
Apple
wait
store.
if you wait 6 or 8 months, there'll be an iPhone 14 and there'll be a Pixel 7.
Yep.
So, what is it, like October-ish these things usually come out. So
Whatever.
there you go. All right, so let's see what else we got here. Culture. We got culture stuff. We're getting close to the end of the list. This
We are.
This is
And
going
we should
faster
be,
than we
'cause it's-
thought.
Well, we're 37 minutes in, so
Yeah,
this is good.
and we
And
started
there's
on
some good
time.
stuff here. Yeah.
It's weird. Anyway, so from a culture perspective, and I didn't know where else to put this. I guess it's culture. Zuckerberg wants to rule the virtual world. We found that out in 2021.
We did. And I think, we sometimes get on I don't know if I want to call it a rant. We sometimes get on crusades as technical people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I have a very similar perspective on this. It is really, really important that good people do whatever they can to make sure that Zuck does not rule this new metaverse with an iron fist of bullshittery.
I have felt for a long time. I mean, I'm a Facebook user. I did not use Facebook for a long time and finally gave in, right? And I don't feel good about using it. I never have.
No.
It's always, and now it's worse because it's so easy to just get yourself into an argument. It's so easy to trip up their anti-harassment or anti, fact checking, not anti-fact checking, but their fact checking filters and whatever. And every time I see it happen, whether it was for the right reason or not, it frustrates me, right? That the platform is slowly devolving, right? I've talked about this on the show before. I think it'd be great if we could stand up our own social network that's decentralized and that people would actually use it. And the reality is people won't, because Facebook is the standard. Facebook is especially for folks in our generation. Younger folks are now moving to other social platforms, but it's really the same problem in a different app, right? Well, now we're at the start of something new, which Zuckerberg is calling the metaverse. Call it what you want. I think that's a terrible name for it, especially given the connotations that go along with the book. But I think that now is the time, right? And I don't want to sound like some kind of a zealot here. But now is the time to look into alternatives before he gets that foothold, right? So anyway, I went on. Maybe you had a point. I think maybe I just said the same point. I don't know.
I just, yeah. I think virtual worlds, virtual realities, shared experiences can be an amazing thing. I'm concerned that we don't end up in a situation where it's the worst parts of Ready Player One, and we never fought back against it.
Yeah, right. And I guess that's a much more concise way of saying what I was saying, right?
Right.
Now, like, it's not formed, but it's coming quickly. Right?
Yeah. Don't let Zuck win by doing nothing.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, I think we're already doing, not you and I, but
The royal way. The royal
the
we are.
world is already, You can see it with all the purchases that we just talked about of the Oculus Quest
The
2.
Quest 2, yeah.
Yeah. You know, they're locked into an ecosystem that is controlled by Meta, right?
Yeah, because Bubba and Aunt Mary ain't going to try and jailbreak their Quest 2s.
Right. And the current iteration of what is it, Horizons, which is the Facebook or Meta's
I have no idea.
metaverse, right? It's called Horizons. It's Quest only. Surprise. Now, will it stay that way? I don't know, right? Are they going to go for the you have to have our hardware to use this thing, or are they going to? Is that because it's still in beta right now and that's the platform they have to work on? I don't know, right? I can tell you that when I looked into it for our last show, I couldn't find anything that anybody was committing to making this available on anything but the Quest. So,
and that's fine because I have no intention of using it. I don't want to use it.
Yeah, but I don't want to use Facebook.
Well,
so like
you
think
know
about
what?
that for a second, right?
If I didn't have the sunk cost of Facebook, I would be gone from it. And I got myself booted today, right before the show, for having the nerve to call an anti-vaxxer a plague rat.
That may have been harsh.
And no, and I seriously contemplated for a few seconds just doing the big delete button. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got so much stuff. It's the sunk cost fallacy. I've got so much content on there, memories and things like that, that it would actually hurt to delete.
Yep.
But if I could go back in time and not do Facebook, I would do that. I'm not going to fall into the same trap with Zuckerberg's metaverse.
Yeah,
Screw that guy.
I have trouble saying with any certainty that that's the case, because there was a point that if you had asked me if I would ever have a Facebook account, the answer would have been no. But here I am. I've been on it for like 7 years now.
I get that, and
it's
maybe I will be in Zuckerberg's stupid metaverse, but I'm going to try like hell not to be.
It's because that's where everybody else went, and if you want to participate in those crowds, if you want to talk to
honestly,
talk to Aunt Sally, who the only way to get a hold of her anymore is through Facebook, then you're on Facebook, right? And it's a shame. I think it's a shame. Which is why I think we need a decentralized answer to the same thing, something that is interoperable,
something that Aunt Sally will never get on.
Well, that's the key, right? If
but
you
Aunt
had
Sally's a little bit of a she's got a little bit of a drinking problem, and she also practices light racism. So maybe we really don't want to interact with her too much.
Or maybe you love Aunt Sally and you really want to keep in touch with her, and
then
that's
the
real problem, right? Yeah, right. You call her on your phone, but if we could come up with some kind of a platform that is interoperable across platforms. Imagine that, right? You're not just locked into one platform, so that my decentralized whatever it is can interact with Facebook and talk to people on Facebook. All of a sudden, I don't need a Facebook account, but Facebook's probably still tracking me at that point.
and they'll fight like hell to not let that happen.
Right. That's the problem. That's really the crux of the problem.
But let's talk about other cultures.
Let's talk about movies.
I'm starting to get irritated thinking about Zuck.
Let's talk about movies.
Free in my head.
So we had some cool movies come out this year. We had a new Matrix movie. Have you seen it yet?
I did watch it. And
I haven't seen it yet.
You're supposed to not like it, but honestly, it was a fun ride. I honestly believe that they maintained a level of respect to the source material. It worked. It worked. The story worked in universe. Neil Patrick Harris was a lot of fun in it.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched it on HBO Max. And I feel that I did not waste my time watching it, and I probably enjoyed it more than the third movie. Nothing is like the original Matrix.
The first one had a certain feel to it, yeah.
But the original Matrix, I remember seeing it. My friend Dick at Micro Warehouse, I forget Dick's last name, but he's like, you got to see this movie, and he handed me a videotape. Now, for those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, a videotape is like a Blu-ray disc. Shit, you don't know what that is either. Um, no, he handed me a VHS copy of it, and I threw it in the VCR when I got home.
A
Basically,
videotape is like a cassette tape, except for video. Oh,
they don't
wait.
know what a
Wait,
cassette
a
tape
cassette
is.
tape is like an 8-track, but for... Wait, no.
No, it's like a like a vinyl record, but smaller. Because they know what vinyl records are, which is super ironic.
That is weird. That is weird.
Oh, so anyway, but I popped in the tape, and I had no preconceived notions about what it was about at all. It blew my friggin' mind. I mean, the special effects and stuff were really cool, but finding out the story that
Oh, yeah.
the world as we knew was
Yeah.
really... you can't call this a spoiler. The world as we knew it was a computer simulation, and they were really in the... That was like, oh my God, this is so cool!
And I remember, because I was hyped up about the movie, it wasn't just a complete blindside to me when I first saw it. I'd watched the trailers, and
But the trailers
none of them...
The trailers did not give that away.
That's what I was saying, right? That's what I was about to say. The trailers did not give it away.
We lived in a better time when the trailer didn't show you the best 15 minutes of the movie.
Right. So, but yeah, the first Matrix, I actually skipped work to go see that.
That was
First
well
Matrix
justified.
movie.
A few of us saw the second Star Wars movie during the day when I worked at Merck.
Yeah.
Ooh, can I admit that now? I guess I just did.
You think they're gonna go back and fire you?
Let them try.
Hey,
yes.
the paychecks we sent you from the day you skipped work to go to Star Wars until the day you left Merck, you need to give it back.
Yeah.
It's a retroactive firing.
Good luck with that. Another big science fiction, like so you look at science fiction, you look at stories that have given us the modern science fiction. Dune is a big one. That one, like a lot of the stories and the concepts of Dune, you see that led to like a lot of the stuff in Star Wars, other stuff like that. And there was a Dune movie made in the 80s, the David Lynch version, which is enjoyable in its own weird ass way, but one could argue it's not really a very good movie.
It's one of those cult classics, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? Like
Or
it's
The
not
Room.
really a good movie, but people watch it
It's
like
not.
religiously.
And you're
Yeah.
allowed to enjoy it, but it's
Yeah.
not a good movie.
Yeah.
The Dune the Dune that came out this year was a good movie.
I haven't
Have you
seen it yet.
that one?
No.
Oh my God!
In fact, I haven't seen the 80s Dune. I've seen pieces of it. I've never seen all of it.
I watched the new Dune, and you know, just to be perfectly clear, the Dune that came out this year is part one. It's really a two-parter.
Okay.
It was excellent. It is not. It's like the new Blade Runner. It's a slow burn, but Dune is a slow burn. Right? People who bitch about it not being actiony enough, stuff like that. They're the same people who are angry about, oh, what's the TV show I like that's a slow burn that they don't like? I don't even know. There's stuff that is not like high speed, high action, but that it's intentionally slower.
Yeah.
And Dune is in there, but the effects, the cinematography, the soundtrack, the music and stuff, fantastic. So I would say we actually have a good Dune movie. There is a sci-fi miniseries on Dune that was pretty awful. We generally don't talk about.
I heard that was pretty terrible. I think I've seen bits of that only because I remember when it was on the air. But again, I did not, because I had not seen the movie, the 80s movie. I wasn't like hyped up to see the series either. And it sounds like I didn't miss much.
All right. So the third movie, we
Yes.
got a decent Ghostbusters, because the
I've heard
previous
mixed reviews.
Ghostbusters was terrible. This Ghostbusters was a sequel. It was in the same universe, and I thought it was really well done.
It was a sequel to the...
It was a sequel to the first two Ghostbuster movies. The
Right.
third Ghostbuster movie with the all-female cast was a reboot. It did not
Right.
take place in the same universe.
Right.
And
So it was a sequel to the original two.
it was a sequel to the original two.
Right.
The main character is related to Egon from the first two Ghostbusters.
And it's the kid from Stranger Things, isn't it? Will is it?
What? That's not the main character. I would
Oh, it's not
argue his
him.
sister
Okay,
is.
I
But yeah,
haven't.
I think that is Will from Stranger Things, the older brother.
I haven't seen Ghostbusters yet either.
Ghostbusters Afterlife. Jeez,
I really
I'm
want
talking to
that
myself.
one. That one I really want to see, but I missed the release day. All of a sudden, I hear people talking about having seen it. I'm like, oh crap! Did I missed it?
I watched it on a Plex server, so we good. Um,
So I'll have to look it up
so
and
all
see
right.
because
So now we
it sounds really good.
now we'll get to a movie that even though I have Disney Plus, I haven't gotten around to seeing.
Yeah, so now you're going to see why I have not seen all of these cool nerd culture movies. It's because the TV is always monopolized by these two short girls that live in my house, also known as my kids.
I remember those days.
Yeah, so
Not when your kids lived with me when my kids were little.
that would have been
And
weird.
it was yeah, that would have
Yeah.
been weird.
But
Little bit of Handmaid's Tale there.
they were really hyped up about this new Disney movie called Encanto, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I think that's how you pronounce it.
That's good white guy pronunciation, at least I think.
It's good. Like it's really good. I think it's really good anyway. It's got a good story to it. It's not exactly nerd culture, but it is about, you know, a family that has magic powers, and you know, it's like fantasy adjacent, really. If you
So
think
so
about it.
fantasy works. So you think about the movie Onward, which was
Yeah,
that was the last Disney movie I saw in a theater.
that's another
I,
really good movie.
I
think.
actually saw that in the theater because we saw it on our cruise ship at the beginning of the pandemic.
That's cool. Yeah, Onward is just like full of nerd culture references because
God, if you're
it's basically like if you were to take Dungeons and Dragons, and you were living it, and you know, like it's weird. Yeah,
But the animated Disney movies are usually pretty friggin' fantastic. You look at like Coco,
mm-hmm.
you look at Soul, which came out last Christmas.
Soul was good.
Soul was excellent.
Soul was good.
I'm not surprised Encanto is good, and I don't really I haven't really read a whole lot on it. But one little side commentary I read that I thought was really interesting is that apparently Encanto does its whole thing without there even being a villain. Like
There isn't.
the conflict in the movie is all about like your position in your family or stuff like
The
that.
conflict is the dynamic in the family, and it's
Which is
I don't want to.
that's
Yeah,
pretty friggin' mature.
I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's all about the dynamic in the family, and it's this
Yeah.
family that has
I
basically like
intend to
mystical
watch it.
powers, and there's a town that depends on them because of their powers, right? Like in much the same way that we would depend on a construction company to come and clean up a bridge that fell down, right? Like that sort of dependence, except they don't have a construction company. They have
It's
people
like
with magical
Onward, where we
powers.
pivoted over to magic.
Yeah, right. And yeah, the whole movie is basically around this family and kind of what having that power and having that dependence from the people did to them and the way they saw themselves versus the way that the people saw them, and it's really
You know,
it's deeper than you think, and it's a really good movie.
Uncle Ben did point out that with great power comes great responsibility.
You're right. You're right. And this goes into like how that responsibility is viewed from both sides, right? Like
And
how
if you haven't seen the new Spider-Man movie, chef kiss. I actually risked COVID to see it in the theater.
cool.
Yeah.
I have trouble watching yet another Spider-Man reboot, although I've heard.
It's not a reboot.
Well, no, but it's the third series of Spider-Man in my lifetime.
There's a multiverse now, and that's all I'm going to say. Um,
There was the
the
Well,
Marvel movies and shows are going places that the comic books started going 20 or 30 years ago,
yeah.
and it's friggin' amazing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I do feel good about the newer Spider-Man series. I just every time I look at the new Spider-Man, I remember that it's been rebooted twice in recent memory, right? And it just makes it feels weird to watch it.
See it as soon as you can with a
But-
minimal amount of spoilers going in.
But
it's amazing fun.
having seen ever since Iron Man, really, having seen what they've done with the Marvel Universe, I have trouble believing that it wouldn't be any good.
Yeah.
because
Right.
they've all been great. Even the not so great Marvel movies have been
A
pretty darn good.
mediocre Marvel movie is still better than a lot of the crap that's out there.
Yeah, yeah. So
TV.
TV,
'Cause
yeah.
nerds like TV.
Nerds like TV. So I am.
Oh, that's the slow burn. Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett. Some people are bitching about it because it's not. They don't feel there's enough action. It is a delightful slow burn western in the Star Wars universe.
Isn't it like 2 or 3 episodes in?
Yeah.
The Book of Boba Fett?
The third episode dropped. It should be viewable today.
Yeah, okay. Then I think I've only seen the first episode. I don't think I saw the second one yet.
There's whiny people who are complaining that it moves too slowly. I love it.
It feels very similar to The Mandalorian, but different enough that it's not just like the same show.
Yeah.
Because you could have been like, it's just another Mandalorian. This should have just been season 3 of The Mandalorian or whatever. Which I'm a little disappointed we don't have yet. Is it season 3 we're up to on The Mandalorian? Yeah.
We'll get to it.
But that'll come. That'll come. But yeah, it was good. Like I said, I only saw the first episode. I thought the first episode was pretty good. It laid down a decent groundwork. We'll see what episode 2 looks like.
It continues to be good. Episode 2, I was very pleased.
Yeah.
And we'll see what episode 3 looks like.
I think we watched episode 1 like the day before episode 2 came out, and then we didn't get back to it. So it's only been like a week or two since, because they're weekly, aren't they? They're coming out once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's looking good.
The other Star Wars thing that happened this year was the Bad Batch.
Yep, I'm about halfway through that.
The Bad Batch, I got to admit, when I first heard about it, I wasn't necessarily excited, and the series started, and this was before Abby went to Korea. The two of us were watching it, and it was very, very happy. She was in Korea by the time the last few episodes are coming out. So we did the Disney Plus thing where you can watch it together. It actually has that feature in there.
Yeah.
Very happy with it.
So the Bad Batch, I wanted to see. When I heard about it, I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. And then I realized that it was so based on the lore that was from the Clone Wars. And I'm like, if I watch the Bad Batch, I will have missed a whole bunch of stuff about where these guys came from, why they're here, like the whole story, the whole backstory.
You're rewarded by having watched the entire Clone Wars.
Like in a lot of senses, it's almost like another season of the Clone Wars, right? Because it's so related.
It starts right after.
Right.
Right
after. It is like the next season.
Yeah.
So when the Bad Batch came out, instead of watching any of it, I went back and started watching Clone Wars because I had not seen the entire series. Now Disney Plus does have that cool view or whatever you want to call it, where it'll catch you up. Where it's like, oh, you want to watch the Bad Batch? You should watch these episodes of the Clone Wars in order to get yourself filled in. I didn't do that. I watched the whole series. It took me months.
Clone Wars is so good.
It was really good. It was really good. I do not regret it in the least. But I wish I had done it with my wife, because when I got to the final season of Clone Wars, like my mind was just blown at how intertwined with episodes 2 and 3 it was. Was it episodes 2 and 3? Yeah, like when Grievous dies and when, or not Grievous. Yeah, Grievous?
General Grievous.
Is it when General Grievous dies? How that's all, like that whole thing that played out in between those two movies was intertwined with that last season.
They do a brilliant friggin' job.
They do. But when I told my wife about that, she's like, oh, I'm going to have to watch that. I'm like, yeah, but you can't just watch that. You have to watch the whole series.
Sorry, Jess, it's a heavy lift.
So now she's watching the series. I'm like, we could have done this together. Oh, well. Anyway.
So, 8 o'clock, we have 2 more things.
We do. The Expanse, Season 6. It is, Season 6.
Are you current?
I caught up as of was it last weekend? I think I saw up to episode 6.
Yeah, so you're current. Yeah. They're doing this thing where the part of the show before they run the main intro.
Yeah.
It's this whole story on one of the colonies. I'm really kind of curious
with the
how that's
magic
going
dog.
to
Yeah,
I'm really curious how that's going to intersect with everything else.
yeah, I agree.
But yeah, what
Yeah,
a
it's like 5 minutes before each episode, and then the rest of the episode has nothing to do with it.
yeah,
It's
what a
like this
fan
whole little
what a
sub.
what
Yeah.
what a gr- I was starting to get frustrated with the show the season that they were stuck on the planet and they weren't really flying the Rossi around.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately it ended up okay, but I'm like, more flying the Rossi.
yeah,
And
yeah,
now we're back to being in
yeah.
space.
Season 5, I guess it was. There was a whole lot more about like the dynamic between the crew,
Yeah.
and of course on the planet they were on. I forget what the planet name was now.
Earth?
No,
You're
it
saying-
wasn't
or that season
the other planet.
was it season 4 that they were on the colony?
Was it
'Cause
4? I thought it was season 5.
Season 5 was last season
Right,
when the crew was scattered at the beginning of the season.
right, right. Yeah,
And they eventually all
yeah,
came back together.
yeah, right. So you're right. It was season.
When Marcus now again, tough shit for the spoilers because it was last year when Marcus was bombing Earth with asteroids.
Yeah,
And Amos got stuck on Earth.
yeah.
And Peaches, he rescues Peaches.
Rescues Peaches.
Yeah, but the Expanse is one of those things. I'm just gonna have to go back to the beginning and just watch it straight through once it's over.
Yeah,
'Cause this is the last season.
I
so
did
The
that.
story will be done.
I did that about a year ago because I watched the first season and I think I watched a little bit of the second season, and then I kind of lost track of it for a while, and then it was like season 3 or 4 were out, and I'm like, I don't remember what's going on. So
Got to do a review.
so I started over again and watched the whole thing, and I got all the way up to the end of season 5, I think it was. Because by the time I'd finished the first 3 seasons, season 4 was done, and season 5 was starting to be released, right? So then I watched it more live. Yeah. Then I had to wait.
Yeah, but so Expanse, great science fiction. Truly, in a lot of ways, I think it's, I used to call it the spiritual successor to Firefly.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's gone beyond that.
People
Like,
are people are speculating again that Firefly's going to make a comeback.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
What was
And
it
then
like Disney bought their production studio, or
they bought Fox. Who the heck knows?
I forget what it was now.
And
So
and
now
then,
everyone's like, "Oh, Firefly's going to come back." Like,
mm,
one, I don't
right.
know. 2,
more.
good luck making a new Firefly season
even-
or series now that lives up to the old standard.
And are even with would all the actors be involved? And they're like significantly older now.
They
I
are.
don't even know how that would work.
They are.
And isn't the guy who was the priest dead? Or did I am I misremembering?
You might be right. He may have passed
Yeah.
away.
Anyway, lots of Marvel goodness on Disney Plus. We had
Yep.
a lot of that in 2021. We had WandaVision. We had Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We had Loki, which was friggin' brilliant. And we had Hawkeye. We ended with Hawkeye, which was a great limited series. I don't know if you saw any of those.
I started watching WandaVision, and then probably went on to watching The Expanse or something because we didn't finish it. I actually went back. I was going to watch it just the other day, and for some reason didn't. That's next on my list of series that I actually want to watch because it started out weird, and it kind of lost my wife. But I still want to see it because everyone says it's such a great show. So
I mean, some of it, if you're a Marvel head, there's so many Easter eggs and things in these series.
yeah,
If you don't care about the MCU, they're not as big of a deal, but they're so full of Easter eggs
yeah, yeah.
and fan service and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're a Marvel fan, there was some great stuff on Disney that was pushed in 2021.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. So I think that's our whole list of things that we wanted to talk
Hashtag
about
Nerd Life.
from 2021. If we missed anything, feel free to reach out to us and say, hey, you missed this thing that was awesome in 2021. Either we didn't care about it or we forgot about it. Or we just didn't have time. We still went an hour and 5. All right, so we're going to go to a break, folks. Remember, if you're listening to the first part of the show and you want to hear the second part, there will be a episode 114B. You're going to want to go look up in your podcasting app and listen to that if you want to hear the second part of the show. And we're going to take a break, and we'll catch you in a few minutes if you're watching the live stream. So, yeah, we'll see you on the other side.
Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you.
All right, folks, we are back. If you're tuning in for the second half of the show and you didn't hear the first part, you missed our 2021 year in nerd life review. You don't want to miss it because it was fun. We, of course, went on a whole bunch of rabbit trails and, like you'd expect from the show.
Hop, hop, hop.
Get out the
Fun
bunny
fact,
ears.
When Zuckerberg restricts your account and you can't comment or anything, you apparently also can't even like things. Like if you hit like, it rebukes you.
Wow.
Yeah. So I,
He's-
I I can't even like the memes that my favorite meme dealer, Chuck Marshall,
You're
is
like,
posting.
you're really in the corner, aren't you?
I
You
am.
can look at them, but you can't like them?
I can't react, no, because I might react in a mean way. Bully
You
somebody.
might. You bully. You big, mean bully.
I am a meanie.
All right, so let's get the announcements out of the way, then we'll get on to chat. And we got some news to talk about. So let's see if we can go another hour in 10 minutes.
Ay, ay, ay. Let's hope not.
All right, so first of all, our usual Patreon update. I didn't get the total here, but it's something like 15 or 20 people that are patronizing. Is that a proper use of the word? Patronizing? That-
Sure, Nathaniel.
That's usually a
See,
that's,
I was just patronizing. 1, 2,
That's-
3, 4, 5, 6.
that's usually a negative word, but I think it may actually be the right use of the word, patronizing. You are patrons of our show. You're
We're
counting.
23,
23. Wow.
which is awesome because that's a prime number.
You'd think I would keep track of how many there are instead of just reading their names off on the show, but I'm going to read their names off on the show anyway. So a big thank you to Zed Thor because he told us to pronounce it that way. Name pending 197. Jeremy, Aranami,
Frog.
Aranami, Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn with some numbers in there, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, Gimpy B, Mark with a K, The Mentor, John the Nice Guy, Mark with a C, Julius, Andy, J, Charles, and 22532. So thank you to each and every one of you guys. Our Patreon income is like 120 something bucks a month, which is pretty damn awesome.
Nice.
I've been considering, and really it's just like a thought I had earlier today because I was thinking about revamping some of the hold music and stuff, or the waiting music. I was thinking about subscribing to maybe like a music service that we can get like higher quality music. I don't know. We'll see. I use one of those for my YouTube channel, and it's actually pretty handy. But I can't also use it for this because it's linked to the particular media, whatever outlet, channel, whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway, royalties and all are important, I suppose. So anyway, I may do that. I may not. I don't know. Maybe I'll just pocket all that money, pay it, buy bubblegum.
Feeling cute. Might buy some bubblegum. We'll see.
If you want to support the show in like the more traditional way where you buy merchandise, you can still do so on Teespring, teespring.com/stores/Iron Sysadmin. You can get yourself the Iron Sysadmin Flamethrower.
We have a flamethrower?
No, but that'd be awesome.
Damn.
You were referencing the merchandising scene from Spaceballs,
Okay.
and that was
I
the crescendo. The Spaceballs, the movie Flamethrower.
I don't remember that, and I'm a terrible person for not.
You
Oh
don't
my
remember
God.
that?
I remember the scene, but I don't remember the flamethrower.
It was a flamethrower.
Okay.
We should get all right, folks. If we get enough patrons, I don't know. We'll have to find a number for that. We will invent an Iron Sysadmin flamethrower.
I think there's an untapped market there.
Right. I mean, think of all the Sysadmins that would benefit from having an Iron Sysadmin brand flamethrower. This will end badly.
Of course, but that's why it's got unlimited potential.
This will end badly. The building that I used to work in
I
as a
didn't say it was
sysadmin,
potential for good.
the building I used to work in as a sysadmin at Lafayette, in fact, the building that the data center was in the basement of, because that's where they had all the IT people as well, had burned down twice.
Oh, good.
Not with a data center in it, but before the data center was there, it had burned down twice.
Oh, and if you're watching the video, I just want to point out that's a Baby Yoda Bluetooth speaker my wife got for me for Christmas.
Oh, that's that. Oh, wait, I got this for Christmas too. It's Baby Yoda related.
Baby Yoda, baby Yoda.
Wait, you're calling it Baby Yoda? I thought that was one of your pet peeves.
No,
It's a Lego Baby Yoda.
I've always called him Baby Yoda.
I thought you were one of the Grogu people.
No, I am the one who laughs at the Grogu purists.
Okay. Anyway, look, there's a tiny
I'm definitely Team Baby Yoda.
there's
That's
a tiny
amazing.
Baby Yoda in here. My wife got it at a craft
Hooray.
fair. It's probably totally unlicensed merchandise, and Disney will come and find the
That's
people
the
who
best
made it
kind.
and sue them. But it's awesome. I have a little Baby Yoda in his little crib thing, his little cradle thing.
Little floating.
I also, unfortunately, have a Lego Jar Jar Binks, which someday I may melt into slag.
Maybe.
Feeling cute may melt Jar Jar Binks into slag. There's an R2D2 in here, too. Now I feel like I've totally derailed. It's all because you
Yeah.
talked about Baby Yoda, but there's a little R2D2.
Well, he's over my shoulder.
Yeah, he's cool.
So I figured I'd point that out.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, and if you run a podcast and you want to try out Riverside, there's a link in there. It's an affiliate link that can help out Iron Sysadmin if you were to register for Riverside, which is what we use to record the show.
To the riverside.
Living in a van down by the riverside.
Riverside.
I saw a funny meme the other day. So in the off-road community, right? There's this new, maybe not new, but there's like the hardcore rock crawler folks. There's the people who like to drive through mud. There's the people who like to just like cruise down dirt roads. And then there's this new thing. People used to call it glamping or car camping. Well, now it's called overlanding, quote unquote overlanding, where you outfit a vehicle that you can live out of, right? So there's this meme showed up in one of the rock crawling groups or something that I'm in, and it's like, people used to make fun of you and say that you're going to be a bum living in a van down by the river. Now, if you can afford $60,000 for a vehicle, you too can live in a van down by the river. Making fun of the overlanders because they put all this money into essentially like a van with a tent on top.
It's, that's RVs, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, and
But-
I may joke about it, but it actually does look like fun.
Yeah.
Because it's not about just camping without having to set up a tent. It's about exploration and having a vehicle that you can be self-sufficient out of, which is actually kind of cool, I think.
That is kind of cool. That's like the Starship Enterprise or the
Yeah.
Millennium Falcon.
Right, except it doesn't have any replicators. It can't make food for you, and it doesn't have a holodeck.
Boo earns.
Man, if it had a holodeck, that'd be great. I'm going to go overlanding as soon as there's holodeck technology.
Just bring your VR rig with you. You'll be on the holodeck in No Man's Sky.
That'd be the ultimate freaking overlanding. Not only am I bringing all the comforts of home with me, I can escape into an online virtual world because this camping crap sucks.
Right. Right. Now you're tracking.
Yeah.
Now you're tracking.
All right. So yeah, you got anything to chat about today? You got some PlayStation 5 stuff. I didn't miss anything, did I? Oh, there's no new reviews. I didn't even include it here because there's no new reviews.
Yeah.
People, we need reviews so we know what we're doing right.
So just yeah, my gaming time has been mostly the PlayStation 5, although we've had some good Valheim runs lately on Monday night, so that's fun too. We
Yeah.
had a really good one this
We need to
last-
move Monday Night Valheim to a night that my kids don't have
Well,
gymnastics.
this is the first time I'm hearing this, so we'll have to bring that up to the group. So, No Man's Sky, that's one of those games that I owned at launch on the PS4. I've owned it on Windows. When you put the PS4 disc into the PS5, you get a free upgrade to the PS5 version.
That's cool.
So I've been running a new save on that, and that's a lot of fun. And then there's a couple of PlayStation games specifically. One of them, Deathloop, is also available on Windows. It's a oh god, Deathloop is one of those games where if I explain too much, there's way too many spoilers. But it's got this very 1960s aesthetic, if like a 1960s like spy movie type art style.
Okay.
And it's a really good science fiction tale where you're essentially an assassin trapped in a time loop with another assassin, and you're trying to figure out how to get out of it, and dying is part of the whole process. Like when you die, you respawn the same morning, but it's like actually part of the story. And there's ways to find equipment, and then you can use the special substance so that the equipment, you don't lose it when you die at the end of the day. It's a cool game, and it's a lot of fun. And it's made by the same studio that did Dishonored. And if you ever played Dishonored, one of the big hooks there was you could play it like you want. You could do full on combat, you could do stealth, you could do a combination of like magic and stuff. And Deathloop has a similar feel, although my what I tend to do is I just end up slaughtering everybody on the level anyway with shotguns. But it's a lot of fun.
It's one way to do it.
Um,
Slaughter everyone with a shotgun.
yeah. Uh, Ghost of Tsushima came out on the PS4, but it's remastered director's cut PS5. The best way to describe it is it's Skyrim, but you're a samurai, and it is beautiful. You
Samurai
essentially are leading a guerrilla war against the Mongols in the late 13th century on your island in Japan, and it's a great game. And then the newest one is a very hard rogue light called Returnal. And Returnal's a science fiction third person shooter where um, again, dying is very much part of it. You'll start a run, but it's like, like Binding of Isaac or other rogue type things, or Hades. Certain things you do in the game, you get to unlock permanent upgrades, but like when you die, you basically go back to the beginning of the run, and it's really about pushing how far can you get,
Hmm.
and how much can you unlock for your next run so that you can do better. And part of it though is learning. It's very hard, but it's very conquerable if you practice and you focus on how the different enemies do stuff. Now, for me, because I tend to sometimes be impatient and headstrong and charge into stuff, Returnal has had to kick my ass several times to teach me to approach certain things in a different manner. But I'm having a very good time with that. In the non-gaming front, um, sometimes as a TAM, our normal engagements are like a year or 3 years, but we sometimes get a short-term engagement for a customer to try us out. I've got one of those now. It's a 3-month thing, and they're a heavy IPA shop. They need some help with that, so I've been skilling up on IPA and trying to stay 10 minutes ahead of them, which I think I'm doing a pretty good job of.
IPA is a good, or Red Hat IDM, which is the proper term for it, right?
I would love to get. I've got at least one other customer that uses it and runs into challenges with it. I'm like, I really don't want to deal with you friggin' IDM, but it keeps being thrust at me.
yeah, it's not a bad tool set. I ran it at the college, but it was a very small scale thing. It was mainly,
The problem I have is until recently I never really dug in and tried to understand all the different components, and now I'm having to do that. Like,
yeah,
I run an IPA server here, but I don't do any identity management on it. I use it for DNS and a couple of other things.
hmm
I really should make accounts for my lab
yeah,
and use that, but I
yep,
don't feel like it.
yep. And that's really that is the problem that it was designed to solve. It's meant to be not necessarily single sign-on, but same sign-on. It's meant to be a identity, you
Yeah.
know, identity provider, right? You put your accounts in there. You can manage pseudo rules. You can manage access and
Uh,
SSH keys and all that stuff.
I'll get around to it one of these days.
It's really Active Directory for Linux is the best way I've described it to people that don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm not some weird pro on it either. It's just I have some experience with it from running it at the college, and I don't have any customers with it right now. But
I didn't realize you actually ran it, so now I can nag you about stuff.
yeah, and again, it was small scale. We had like a dozen accounts in it. I mainly stood it up because when we built our Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization infrastructure, we needed
Oh, you
something
mean
to
the stuff that
authenticate.
melted down?
Shh. Yes, the stuff I melted down. We needed something to authenticate it to, and it did not have hooks for LDAP, which is what we used for identity at the college. So I needed something to put accounts in, because we didn't have Active Directory, which is what it assumed you would have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I built an IDM box out of necessity.
There you go.
And
All right.
it really wasn't bad. It worked out pretty well.
Yep. Yep. Oh no, it works. I just don't know what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
Like like in terms of accounts, like it's got one account and it's got admin, which is the IDM user on the web
Yep.
console.
Yep. And you can even do like Active Directory trusts with it. So if you're in a mixed environment, you can
I'm
have
not.
well, I'm saying if your customer was or something, you could have it pull identity from
Thankfully,
AD.
thankfully they're not. They don't. This customer doesn't give a shit about Active Directory.
That is good, right? Because it just adds more complexity, right? I had set it up once as a demo for a customer that had Active Directory and was thinking about IDM, and it was kind of a nightmare to set up. Partially because I'm not a pro. Again, I'm not a IDM pro, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's what I got going on.
yeah, yeah. So you might remember from our last show that I forget if I said it on the show or not, but I know I told you, Mark, that I was very annoyed by the fact that the fan in the new computer that I bought, the Alienware, was so freaking loud it sounded like a little vacuum cleaner running under my desk, and you could hear it in the background. When I was editing the show, I'm like, man, this is so annoying. And I don't know if anyone noticed it or not when they... In fact, I did my best to edit it out using noise cancellation in the editing software I use, but I really didn't want to have to deal with that. And it was really loud. Just sitting in the room here with it. Like when I was in VR, it was terrible. I could hear it through the headphones in the VR headset. That's how loud the damn thing was. So I picked up a water cooling heatsink for the CPU from Corsair. You may remember Corsair as a vendor in this space. Like they're like one of the names in in cooling in computers, right? I picked up a Corsair, I think it's H60 is the model, and it's crazy. 20 years ago, obviously 20 years is a long time in the IT space. I remember people were tinkering with water cooling, and it was just like this really crazy and like cutting edge and very hacky space where people had like
and
like
you were
Freon running through their case, right?
Terrified it was going to break open and soak your computer.
Right. And now you can just buy a pre-sealed, pre-assembled unit. It's got a radiator,
with liquid in it.
Yeah, it's got a little radiator, which
Do you
to
ever
me
have to refill it?
to me it looks like a transmission cooler. But again,
Uh-huh.
Because of my background in automotive, it's just a little radiator like your car would have, except it's much smaller. And it's got a fan attached to it, again like your car would have, but much smaller. And it's plumbed. It's a sealed unit. There's a hose. Yep, there's a seal in my computer now. There's two hoses, an inlet and outlet. They come out to a little pump that mounts right on top of the CPU, and that replaces your heatsink, right? And now instead of passing air through fins, the little pump drives whatever coolant is inside of this thing through itself over the CPU, right, to cool the CPU, out to the radiator. A fan blows air through the radiator. A fan which is ridiculously quiet, I will add, because it runs at such lower RPM, I suppose, than the factory fan did. And the radiator dissipates the heat, and then the liquid goes back to the CPU, and it's just a cycle, right? Completely pre-sealed, pre-assembled. It's the only thing I'm concerned about is longevity, right? Like, am I going to be replacing this thing in a year, or is it going to last me 10, 15 years? I don't know. Right? Some people report online that their H60 failed in a year or two, but there was a redesign on the H60, and I think all those reports were from the old design. So I'm crossing my fingers. We'll see. It is ridiculously quiet now. Like, I can hear it when I don't have the headphones on. I can hear it, but it's not nearly as loud as it was. It was really loud before.
No, it was very loud before it. So you never have to like replace liquid in it?
No, you don't. It's a sealed unit. If you have to replace liquid in it, it means there's a leak.
Yeah, which is bad.
Okay. So yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's been in there I think 3, maybe 2 weeks now. I put it in the week after our last show. It was the week I was off actually between Christmas and New Year's. I put it in. So yeah, it's great. It's quiet. It's good. Even in VR. When I have VR fired up, it doesn't get any louder at all.
Good.
It's crazy. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see. For Christmas, and I think I told you this before Christmas, we got the kids Animal Crossing, which is the game you have been talking about for like 2 years.
Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah. The kids have played it a little bit. Surprisingly, I've probably played it more than them.
It sucks you in, right?
Mainly because I was curious, right? And it is a surprisingly relaxing game to just sit down and burn some time in. Like I can't play it for 6 hours straight, but you know, an hour or two.
And that's how you're supposed to play it. That game saved my sanity during the pandemic because
Yeah.
that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right, and it's so low stakes. I don't feel like
It's impossible to screw up.
it's like I don't feel like I have to play it. I don't feel like there's any.
No. Old Animal Crossing games, if you didn't log in for a while, sometimes villagers would move away.
Yeah,
This they will not.
that's cool.
They'll lightly guilt trip you if you haven't been on for all the big. Oh, Gangriff, I've missed you. Have you been out having adventures and stuff?
Yeah, I didn't play for like a week, and I got that. I
And
fired it
if
up,
you-
and I.
If you're gone for too long, there'll end up being roaches in your house and stuff that you got to step on. But yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I picked it up hardcore around Thanksgiving and early December, but I haven't really been playing it lately because again, like my gaming time has been mostly the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Although my son got me this really cool Japanese game on the Switch, Shin Megami Tensei. Remember how like in the 90s and 2000s, like all the fundamentalist pastors were like, "Oh, Pokemon is like about demons and shit."
Yeah.
Like summoning demons. Yeah, well, this is actually like grown-up Pokemon. You like literally become like possessed by a demon, and you build a team of demons to fight. But it's Japanese, right? They like take and mix mythologies up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's actual. He got me that for the Switch, which was very touching because he paid for it with his own money.
That's pretty
And
cool.
that, yeah, so this is Shin Megami Tensei. This is 5. I bought 3, which is a PS4 title remastered, and I've got that on the PS5 as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I got to work on that.
Yeah. So yeah, and then since I'm using the Switch again, I started part of Animal Crossings. There's like the multiplayer aspect, right? Crossing.
Single
Sorry.
player.
Okay.
Or
Part of
single-
Animal Crossing.
Singular. There you go.
Single tense.
It's like my
Whatever.
mother-in-law, may she rest in peace. She used to always call it Walmarts. It was always plural, and Kmarts. She always like plural.
Yeah. Well, my mother-in-law calls it Giants instead of Giant. The grocery store.
It must be an old lady thing.
It's a mother-in-law thing. Anyway, so now that the Switch is in my hands again, I started playing around. Well, again, the multiplayer aspect of Animal Crossing. I had to get Nintendo Online or whatever their thing is, which I was not subscribed to before, which includes their retro gaming emulator. So I've been playing.
It does.
I've been playing Metroid, Super Metroid on on the Switch, which is fun to just kind of sit down and play. So I'll play some Animal Crossing, and then I'll play some Metroid for a little while until I get frustrated or tired, and then so yeah, that's fun. And then the other thing I did recently was I was having some 3D printer troubles with under extrusion, which anyone who doesn't have a 3D printer, they're going to be like, what the hell does that mean?
Who the hell knows?
And
I like to print these infinity fidget cubes.
Oh yeah, I've got one of those right here on my desk. In fact, I think I sent you the file for those.
Did you see the nesting one?
No, I haven't seen it. Oh no, I did see that. You showed that to me.
You open it up, and it's got.
There's another one inside. Yeah.
It's got a little child cube inside of it that you can also fit you with.
Yeah.
So, but you were having an under extrusion problem.
Yeah. So under extrusion is where
They make pills for that.
it's where the filament that's heated and coming out of the nozzle does not come out as fast as it's supposed to, And of course, the
Sure.
drive wheel will sometimes slip because it's not coming out like it's supposed to. And there's lots of reasons that it
Yep.
can happen. Most of them are due to this thing called heat creep, where heat from the heated nozzle, which is meant to melt the filament, travels up the tube that the filament comes through, and then the filament hardens in the tube, right? So I spent a bunch of time and research on how the hell do you fix that. And I found a couple fixes, and I did two different things to the print head on my 3D printer. Yours is a direct drive, isn't it? Where the drive wheel is right on the head, and it pulls the filament right in. There's no like Bowden tube and stuff.
There is a Bowden tube.
The Ender 5, the drive motor is all the way on the side of the frame.
Yeah.
And then there's like, I don't know, a
Mine's-
foot and a half of Bowden tube that the filament goes through.
Mine's the same way.
Is it the same way? I thought yours was one with the filament on top and it drove directly to, anyway.
No,
Um,
side mount, and it goes through about a foot of Bowden.
I found this guy that recommended. So the way those go together is the Bowden tube goes into the hot end by like an inch and a half maybe. And then there's a friction fitting that holds it all in there. And then if you don't get it seated just right against the tip, the nozzle, you have a little gap between the nozzle and the Bowden tube, and that's where the filament will sometimes leak out into and harden and cause this under extrusion problem.
Not great. Yeah.
It's not great. And the way to fix that is to, like, you basically do this little dance if you ever have to pull the Bowden tube out, where you loosen the nozzle up and heat it up and then tighten it back up against the well, this guy is like, I made this little jig that you can 3D print, which is, for different printers, there's different size jigs. And you lay your Bowden tube into the jig and you cut it off at a certain length. And then you feed that into the hot end, right? And then there's a little separator that you plop in there. And then you tighten the rest of your Bowden tube above all of it. So now, in the hot end, there's a section of Bowden tube that never moves. If you ever have to take apart the hot end, like because filament got jammed or whatever, you don't have to pull it off away from the head. It just pulls out of the top. So I did that. That's one thing I did, which has been a nice little addition. So now there's basically like a sleeve of the PTFE, the Bowden tube stuff, in the hot end that insulates all of that. So that's nice. And then the other thing is you can print out, and it's crazy that you can print upgrades for your 3D printer. It's like Inception. But you can print out new like cooling ducts for for the print head, and I did one of those, and it basically takes the existing fans that are on there that are supposed to cool the print surface and print and cool the hot end, and it just basically reconfigures it all so that it gets more efficient cooling. And I did that, and all of my problems are gone now. Not all my problems. All my 3D printing problems are gone now.
3D printing problems.
So they were. I mean, I can probably look up the Thingiverse links and throw them into the show notes if anybody's curious. But yeah, it's just so much better now. My Ender 5 is printing like brand new again. In fact, maybe better than new. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
That's cool.
Now Mark's fiddling with his 3D printer.
Well, because I had to solder something sometime back, and I'm like, is it? Did that? No, it's okay.
You're wondering if your solder joint was cold and it's going to fall apart on you.
I actually replaced the print head at one point. This is the original print head, and I replaced the brass print head with one that's coated in stainless steel.
Yeah.
Because Jamie got me glow in the dark filament as a thank you gift.
And it's more coarse.
It's more abrasive.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when you told me about that.
Curses a lot. So,
Yeah, the nozzle I've replaced a couple times just because they seem to get clogged up on me. I don't know if that'll still be a problem now that I've done these upgrades. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
I got these little tools that you can shove through to
Yeah.
clean them.
Yep. Yeah, you can do that too. Sometimes I just seem to have enough trouble that I've got a couple of those nozzles from the printer came with 2 or 3 of them, I think, if I remember correctly. And I replaced the Bowden tube a while back because the one end had gotten deformed because of the same heat creep problem. And it came with new nozzles, so I've got like 5 nozzles for the damn thing. So yeah, whenever I'm having significant enough printing problems, I just replace the nozzle. So I've done that a few times. But I was on the verge of replacing the entire hot end. I was so frustrated because every time I thought I had it fixed, it would under extrude again, or the filament would get jammed, or I was so frustrated. I was so I actually went to Reddit and found there's groups there for 3D printing, as you would expect. There's even one for the Ender 5, and that's where I went and I was asking there about it, and they gave me all kinds of helpful suggestions. Talk about a social network that's not full of complete idiots. Reddit, for some reason, even though it seems like Reddit has almost no moderation except self-moderation, it seems like the people there are just so much more helpful than they are on other social networks.
Reddit has its moments.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Absolutely does. Any congregation of people will have its percentage of complete idiots, but yeah.
Reddit definitely has its moments.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain topics you don't talk about on Reddit, otherwise you will get completely flamed. Religion is one of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, being a Catholic on Reddit is super fun, let me tell you.
So anyway, I think that's all I had for chat. Should we move on into the news?
Sure.
We have 15 minutes left till 9. Here we go.
Do it.
Push the button, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
I've pushed the button. We need someone named Frank on the show. I think I said this last time, and then we made some jokes about how I should edit that to say push the button, Nate.
That's fine. We'll stumble into our Frank one day.
Yeah.
Someday our Frank will come. Someday.
Now's where I realize I didn't open the links for the news, so give me just a second.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I mean, do you have them open? Do you want to talk about the news?
Of course I don't have them open.
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
Making fun of me. All right. So the first news article I have.
Oh, yeah, you've been busy 3D printing, haven't you?
Yeah. Except I didn't print this. But this is cool, right? So I remember a couple years ago, I saw a video of what they were calling the first 3D printed structure. The first, like, not just at the small scale of what we can print in our basements or whatever, right? But like a 3D printed home. And the thing looked kind of like an igloo. It was like this big circular thing because that was the only way they could make this thing work. And it was printed out of cement. And it was basically like this weird tract work, if I remember correctly, where the thing would roll in a circle and it would lay down cement as it went around in a circle, and it would slowly build its way upward. And it made these like column structures, but it was a start, right? Well, you're familiar with Habitat for Humanity, right? Anyone who's not familiar with them, they're an organization that basically does everything they can to build inexpensive housing, right? And their goal is to make sure that families that can't afford a new constructed house can purchase a house from Habitat for Humanity. I'm sure there's some qualifications or whatever, and it's geared toward folks who are lower income or people who, don't have it as well off as others. Right. Well, obviously, it behooves them to try to find the cheapest way possible to build homes and the quickest way possible. Usually, quick and cheap don't go in the same sentence, right? What is the old triad? You can do it quick, simple, or cheap. Quick, fast, quick, cheap, or good, right? Usually, you can't get all three of them, right? You can get like quick and cheap, but then it's not good, or you can get it good and cheap, but it's not fast, or whatever. Well, they're now 3D printing actual homes, right? And this is what they say. It was like a 1,400 square foot house. It looks just like any other house. It's a rectangular footprint. If you get up close to it, they show some pictures of what the exterior walls look like. They look almost like, they look like it's 3D printed. If you ever look close at a 3D printed anything, you can see there's like lines on it where the layers were laid down. Well, this is the same deal, except it's in cement. But I think it was like 12 hours, they laid down the structure of this house. And then, of course, they put a normal wooden framed roof on it. And I'd imagine like the internal finishings and stuff weren't just left as cement. Probably threw up some drywall and paint and whatever. But the thing looks, from the curb, it looks indistinguishable from any other stick-built house. And I think it's pretty amazing. Now, they said it's not the cheapest way to build a house yet, but it's a start. Like, that's where this stuff goes, right? Now we can do it. Now, how do we do it cheaper, right? So, it's pretty neat. I can't tell if you're frozen or reading. Okay.
No, that's pretty damn cool.
I think it's pretty cool. So, but yeah, that came from CNN. I heard about it on the news. Apparently, they've built a second one now. This article is about the first one they did, and this was in Virginia. But there's another one they did. I heard about it on one of the news shows I listened to in the morning, just like this week. There's another one now built, and I think it's pretty cool. Pretty damn cool.
It is cool.
Anything that can make home ownership more achievable, I think, is a good thing. Especially, I mean, this is a cement house, right? Like, the whole structure of this house is cement. That thing is going to be solid. Like, think about that. It's not just
solid.
It's not just timber and drywall, right? You could drive a car into this; it probably wouldn't go through it. I don't know how thick the walls are. I think in the video you can see it looks like the walls are still hollow, which they would need to be in order to run things like cabling and whatnot. So they're not solid cement walls or cinder block, but it's got to be stronger than drywall and 2x4s. It's freaking cement. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. All right, what's our next one here? The next one's from Tech Radar. Moving from cool stuff to ironic. Maybe it's ironic. Maybe it's not ironic. I don't know.
Google lost the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And they're patching their way out of it.
So anyone who has Google Home devices, which I do.
I actually have a few.
There's some features in there that Sonos claims were direct, like, ripoffs, essentially.
They probably are.
From a collaboration that Sonos and Google did back in, like, 2013, I think it said it was.
That's likely.
2017.
It could have been an intern that stole them.
Could be.
That's the way most Google software seems to end up pushed out.
Yeah.
Crappy intern projects.
But there's features like the ability to broadcast to a certain group of speakers, or not broadcast, but play music on a certain group of speakers. There's something that has to do with volume controls. Let's see, they outline here specifically. There are 5 patents that were alleged to have been infringed upon. Yada, yada, yada. They include the ability to adjust the volume of multiple devices at once on the same network, the synchronization of multiple devices on a network, and the initial setup of such devices. Now, they list 3 things. I don't know if these are 3 things in which 5 patents cover, but this is the thing now. Google lost the lawsuit. The ITC, I don't know what ITC stands for. It's in this article, I'm sure, and I read it and forgot. But the ITC has stated, yep, you've infringed on Sonos's patents, and you got to stop doing that. So Google has removed features from devices that those of us that own these things have purchased because they had to legally, and they now do not work as well as they once did. And there are people, again, a Reddit community I'm in, full of folks who own Google Home devices, are like livid because they used this feature where you could group speakers, and then you could have it like play music on, like, say, your whole first floor of the house or whatever, right? That's one of the things that's gone. Something that has to do with volume controls. I don't know how that's infringing on somebody's patent, but
yeah, I don't know either.
It is, and
sometimes patents are like crazy specific, though.
They are, right. So it must have had something to do with the way they were doing it, because you can still change the volume on these things, and as far as I can tell, that hasn't changed. But something specific about them is different now than it was. But I gotta be honest, right? My Google Home devices, they do not seem to work as well as they used to, and it's not just because of this. It just seems like they've been on a downhill decline for the past year or so.
We basically use them to turn the lights on and off in our bedroom so we don't have to get out of bed.
Yeah, that's one of the things I do with them. But one of the things that we did was you could broadcast to a room, right? So when you set these things up, you tell it what room they're in. And then in Google Home, you can say, like, okay, these lights, this Google Home device, these other things, this TV, for example, they're all in the same room. So if I said something like broadcast to the living room, it would be like, oh, here's the speaker in the living room. That must be where you want to broadcast to, and it would send the message there. That stopped working. Now I have to tell it what device it's on. I don't know if that's part of the patent. Like, is that part of that device grouping? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But at any rate, it's very frustrating because, you know, you get used to how, especially with a voice assistant, right? It's like
I always have to stop and remember how to do anything beyond very basic stuff, and I get frustrated.
well, it's like if every morning I greeted you by saying hello, Mark, right? Every morning
Hello, Nate.
I say hello, Mark, and you go like, hi, Nate, how's it going, right? And one day I go hello, Mark, and you don't respond because the term hello, Mark no longer registers in your brain. I now have to say good morning,
lost
Mark.
the lawsuit.
Yeah, right, because Mark lost a lawsuit. Or I lost a lawsuit. I can't use the word hello anymore, right? But that's how it feels because you get used to saying a certain thing to these devices, and now all of a sudden it doesn't respond to that, and it's very frustrating because you're used to
Definitely
speaking.
a tragedy.
You're used to speaking to people that can parse that stuff, and these things feel like they can, and now they can't, right?
Yeah,
It's-
you're intentionally making them dumber.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution to that. The Google Home devices are another one of those Google things that I would love to disconnect myself from, but have not found an alternative to, much like I did with my Google phone. Because, man, just the other day, right? I forget what it was I was looking at. But obviously, I have a YouTube account, right? I have different channels, and I try to consume different content, whether it's on YouTube as me or YouTube as my Jeep channel or as YouTube as the Iron Sysadmin podcast, based on different themes, so that the preferences that Google stores on them are kind of grouped, so that if I go into YouTube as Iron Sysadmin, I might see technology related stuff in my feed on YouTube, whereas if I go in as my Jeep one, it's all Jeep channels, right? I forget what it was, but I was doing something that was not on YouTube at all, and all of a sudden I went onto YouTube as my Jeep channel, and I got a recommended video for that thing. And it just, like, of course, it was like I used Google to search for something, or it was I asked my assistant to do something, whatever, right? And it like, oh, Nate knows about these things, right? And he's interested in them, and now he's going to show me things. So anyway, every time something like that happens, it just reminds me how interconnected all these things are and how much they track me, and it's
Heebie-jeebies.
heebie-jeebies. That's a good way to describe it. Anyway, heebie-jeebies aside, your Google Home devices are now less useful than they used to be because of Sonos. All right, this is the one. This is the article that we talked about, or we referenced earlier. It's from The Verge. Open source developer corrupts, and corrupt is I think it's a bad use of the word here, but open source developer corrupts widely used libraries affecting tons of projects. Now, the word corrupts, to me, renders a thing useless. That isn't quite what happened here, although effectively he did, so maybe it's the right word.
It is appropriate.
Well, like, to me, corrupt is like no longer functions at all. Like, the data is corrupt is a word you would use for a file or something that is now completely unreadable. It's not unreadable, it just doesn't work the way it used to. Much like your Google Home devices. They're not corrupt.
Well, no, that is corrupt. There's data, the file's there, but the data's scrambled and it's corrupted.
Right.
He was twisted and corrupted and he became evil. That's what the guy did with the tooling.
Yeah.
He made the tooling like stop working properly.
Right. So
So
there's
I think corrupts is a great word in this case. Plus corrupts is a fun word.
yeah. There's two, I guess you'd call these libraries, faker.js and colors.js. Now, faker.js is apparently a library that lets you like impose fake data into a program for demonstration purposes,
Sure.
which you can understand why that might be included in a lot of different applications that include things like a demo. But colors.js is apparently for colorizing the output in a Java console or in a console, right? So you could imagine this is probably used a lot. Anything that has a console that may want to colorize the output, this thing might be used. Well, apparently the author of these, I don't know if he was drunk one night and thought this was a good idea, or if he's really just trying to make a statement, but he apparently modified both of them in different ways to basically make political statements, or maybe not political, but make statements based on something he's apparently passionate about. One of them referring to Aaron Swartz. If you remember Aaron Swartz, he was he was one of the creators, in fact, maybe the creator of Reddit. He was a programmer, right? He was very passionate about open data and open software, and he had effectively stolen a whole bunch of data from an academic research library called JSTOR, and his intention was to make all that data public, and he was caught doing so, and he was facing a ridiculous sentence based on laws that were created when computers were still a big scary thing that no one understood, like back when they thought you could whistle into a telephone and launch nukes. Anyway, the point is that the justice system was going to throw the book at this poor kid. And again, yes, he broke the law. I'm not saying he didn't break the law, but he committed suicide because he was facing like a 30-year sentence or something, and he couldn't bear the idea that he might actually end up in prison for 30 years. Anyway, all that to say, that's who Aaron Swartz was. But there was a statement put in there about Aaron Swartz within the code. Like there was the README file was replaced with this statement about Aaron Swartz. There's a function that replaced, or that was added, that just simply said liberty, liberty, liberty. This sounds very politically motivated. My point is that these are open source projects. The only guy that maintains them, had made these changes to them. And because they were included in all these other projects, all of a sudden those projects did not function properly because they depended on this guy's code. So it comes back to the same thing we were talking about earlier with Log4j, right? Where you've got this domino effect where a piece of the puzzle is changed and now all of a sudden the larger project does not work properly. This guy's apparently also made statements years ago. I think it was like 2019 or something. They said he'd made statements about how he's done working for free for large companies that can afford to pay developers, right? So again, this is one of the things with open source communities. You're putting your code out there, somebody may be making money off of it, and that's just kind of part of the ecosystem, I suppose, right?
So I have a couple of thoughts.
Sure. Go ahead. I've talked enough.
It is one thing to create an open source piece of software, put it out there, and, people use it. And honestly, if there's a bug, and suddenly you've got, Fortune 500 companies screaming that it needs to be fixed, hey, maybe I'll get around to it.
Right.
I don't friggin' feel like dealing with it, though. You
Right.
fork it and fix it yourself.
Yep.
Versus maliciously throwing a turd into the punch bowl, which is essentially what he did.
Yep.
Now, did he have the right to do that? He absolutely did. But he broke some trust.
Yeah.
And working in this industry, you and I get that when you violate trust like that, it can make even the good guys, like open source, for whatever reason, people download like closed source software and buy closed source software and don't even give it a thought. And those same people will turn around and say, well, you can't trust open source because the code's out there and anybody can change it.
Yeah.
And crap like this just makes it bad for people in
It
open
does.
source.
It does.
So
It really does burn the community.
Was he allowed to do what he did? Absolutely. Did he do damage? He absolutely did. Is his reputation tarnished? Yes, and it should be.
Yeah.
Does he have a point that that large companies take advantage of open source software and don't pay developers? He's absolutely correct, but people choose to hand the software out, and decisions have consequences.
Yeah.
And if I decide to give my software away and a company later turns that into $1 billion product, well, that's a shame. And maybe maybe that company will hire me, or maybe they'll somehow compensate me, but you can't be mad because you gave it away. That was your decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's like giving money to a homeless person and then getting mad because they used it to buy something you didn't approve of.
Right.
You know,
That's
I mean
that's the
that's a very oversimplification of it, but it's the same concept, right? I wrote
right.
code, I gave that code away. Someone used that code in a way that I did or didn't agree with, or did not attribute me, or whatever.
As
Um,
long as they didn't violate the license that you
yeah,
released it under, you can't say any. Oh crap! You're using my software, but you like it's like like if I'm like if I'm someone who's like super liberal and I write a code library and I realize that like Donald Trump's organization is using it, I can't get all pissy and say,
right,
"Oh, you're not allowed to use it because I disagree with you politically."
right,
That's not how open source licensing works.
right.
And I just totally I totally made that up. But I know we've had internal discussions at Red Hat where there are people who are pissed that Red Hat has contracts with like, government and military. They don't think that that our software should be used for military purposes. And that's the reality of the world.
Yeah, I mean it really is, right? I mean you can't control what your customers do with your software, and to deny a customer, like you could say that's all motivated by money,
It absolutely is.
but
That's
well,
part of it.
I it's part of it, but denying a customer because you disagree with them is a slippery slope, is what I'm
It
getting at.
absolutely is.
Like it's almost similar to denying somebody because you don't like what country they come from or what nationality they are, right? Like,
Yeah.
granted, that's a thing they can't change in most cases, or in maybe all cases. But anyway, it's a similar thing, right? Like, I don't like what you're going to do with my software. You can't have my software,
Right.
unless you're going to break the law with the software.
But
I
and if you want to make sure that that software you wrote is absolutely not used by people you don't like, then you're going to have to release it under a different license.
yeah, the I don't want the very selective. I don't want you to do so
You're
specific things
not,
with my
yeah,
software license.
you're not allowed to use this if anyone in your organization has ever voted for a Republican. Good luck
Right.
enforcing that.
Yeah, right. I don't like men with beards. If you have beards, you can't use my software.
Yeah. I mean, you get into ridiculous. So was the guy technically within his right to do what he did? Yeah. Was it an asshole move? Yeah.
He apparently got his GitHub account suspended for it.
Which probably was overkill.
It
That
did
probably
seem that did seem a little too far for
and
me.
it
And
apparently got rolled back pretty
yeah,
quickly.
it could very well be that they thought his account was compromised. This article doesn't go into that, but that's just me
Yeah, we don't
kind
know
of
the whole we
putting
don't know
out
the
some
whole story
conjecture.
there.
I could like the sort of edits that were done here feel very much like a compromise, but it sounds like it wasn't, right? So, yeah, they were intentional. So anyway, we have one last article, and we don't have to go too deep on this one, although you know us, we probably will. We'll have opinions or something. This comes from Tech Radar, and you remember Norton Antivirus?
Yeah.
Remember Norton in general, right? Like Norton Utilities, that was like the thing you did to check your hard disk for errors and defrag and whatever. I remember there was a time when every computer I bought, the first thing I put on it was Norton Utilities and Norton Antivirus because they were like the standard, right? That was a long time ago. That was like late 90s. They have fallen. Anyone who knows the name Norton will probably equate that to overbloated software that may or may not actually get the job done that you paid for it to do, which would be mainly antivirus and firewalling. Most people hate this kind of software, and Norton's name is not what it used to be. Because pattern-based antivirus is just what it is, and that's basically what Norton does, as far as I know. Well, now it includes a crypto miner. Now it's off by default, so it's not like you install Norton Antivirus and now your computer is unknowingly part of some crypto mining botnet. But it's there, and you can opt into it, and it's installed by default, and you can't remove it without removing the antivirus software. Now, yeah, it's off by default, and I know that's probably going to be your argument, Mark. It is opt-in. But it still seems weird that they install it by default, Like if I'm going to opt out of it, it probably shouldn't even install the bits, right?
I mean, you know my feeling on crypto.
Yes, I do. I do.
And I think it's a scumbag move, and I think they're basically they're taking a ridiculous cut. They're taking 15% of any crypto that's mined. That's insane.
Yeah.
So you're a friggin' fool if you
Oh
run
yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
If
I
you're
mean
going to burn your electricity to mine,
the
just use some other method, and you immediately will have a higher return on the electricity you're spending.
yeah, the article even insinuates like this is ecologically a bad move
It's terrible.
because now all of the computers that are running Norton antivirus, which opt into this thing, are going to be consuming more power as they're trying to do crypto mining. Because that's exactly the drain of crypto mining, right? Is that
Oh, crypto's terrible for
your
the
machine now
environment.
uses more power, right? And that, of course, will put a tax on the power grid. And if there's enough people running an antivirus, like that could be a real impact.
Yeah. Screw those guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to mine crypto without any of the benefits of mining crypto, put on Norton antivirus and opt into Norton crypto mining or whatever the hell they call it. Yeah, it's crazy, just crazy. We didn't include this in our things that happened in 2021, but apparently it was introduced in 2021, June of 2021, in Norton 360. It's insane. It's just insane. It just seems like such a bad business choice.
I gotta be honest, on my Windows machine, I don't run any third-party antivirus anyway. I run Windows Defender. Never had a problem.
So do I. When I got my, well,
And
when I
Linux,
got
I don't
the
use anything because Linux, you don't need antivirus.
when I got the machine that I was talking about earlier that the display died in, that was the first Windows machine that I had owned in quite a while, and I went to some security researchers that I knew, and I said, "Look, what are people doing on Windows now for antivirus?" And they all said Defender. Just use Defender. Like it's good enough for home use as long as you're not an idiot. You know, it's not going to protect you against that porn site you went to and the thing that you opted into because you wanted to see the boobies.
Neither is Norton.
Neither's Norton, right? But yeah, they said Defender is good enough for that sort of antivirus. You don't need to go out and if you're an enterprise, it's different. If you're trying to protect against crypto lockers and all kinds of stuff, but for just basic malware detection, Windows Defender is as good as anything at that level, right? Without $1,000 price tag.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, I think it's a scumbag move by Norton.
it really is. It
I
really
think
is.
Peter
Like,
Norton's probably spinning in his grave.
Yeah.
They should hook him up to the generator to mine crypto.
but yeah, it's
That's not my joke. That's from one of our fellow Tams.
such a trusted name that's now just completely
In the shitter.
like for software that's only marginally useful in today's age anyway, because again, like there's other options already out there. There's lots of other options in that space, and there's some included for free with Windows. To now include a crypto miner is just like a complete slap in the face to their customers. Yeah. Like we know that we just charged you for this software, but can you make us some more money? Here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Idiots. And the idiots are the ones who just do it.
Yeah, I mean, this statement gets old, but I sometimes have trouble blaming the user for being an idiot because
the user, no.
like some of them don't know. They don't know any. They don't know what a crypto miner is, let alone whether they should opt into it or not. It depends on how it's presented to them. If it's presented to them as like this could make you some money, they might turn it on, not knowing. You know, because they don't know. It doesn't really make them idiots. It just makes them uninformed. I guess that might make you an idiot. I don't know. But anyway. All right. So I think that's all the news for tonight. Unless we wanted to hammer on Norton a little more. I don't think we do.
Nah, I'm done.
So, folks, if you stuck with us this long, we want to say thanks for hanging out with us. We know the show gets to be
You're
pretty
awesome.
long.
All of you are awesome.
Indeed. Very awesome. If you do want to watch us live, you can do so on Twitch or YouTube or even the social media platform that Mark no longer likes, the Facebook. on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Go find us, twitch.tv/Iron Sysadmin Podcast or youtube.com/Iron Sysadmin Podcast. Look up Iron Sysadmin on Facebook, or you can find us on Twitter, but we don't stream to there. Maybe we should look into that. Let's stream everywhere. I looked into how to stream to Reddit. Did you know you can live stream to Reddit? I didn't know that. You can actually do broadcast to Reddit, but it's
I've
not.
seen that, but that looks kind of dumb.
It's not like integrated in Streamlabs like YouTube and Twitch and Facebook are. So
Yeah.
I got that far and said, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Anyway, if you want to join our community, you can do so on Discord. I missed the button. I went to push it, and I went in between the two buttons, and I went, Discord! So anyway, you can do so on ironsysadmin.com. There's a link up there for our community. You can join it through there. And I think that's just about everything, unless you want to support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/ironsysadmin. And with that, I think we're done. Any last words there, Mark?
I have words. I'll never know when the last ones will be.
Okay, how about just for this particular broadcast on this particular evening?
As always, a lot of fun. Hey, we pulled it off.
We pulled it off indeed.
It wasn't and I don't think it's the worst show we've ever done. I'm actually not sure what the worst show we've ever done is.
I don't know.
We'll have to think about that.
We'll have to ask the listeners, folks. What's the
Maybe
worst?
that one guy who hated me.
What's the show that you liked the least of Iron Sysadmin? In fact, most of them have probably turned off right now because I already did the outro part, except for the music. So no one's hearing this.
This is like a Marvel movie. Like this is the post-credit.
This is the post-credit part, right? So there would normally
and
there'd be the outro, right?
Yeah.
And then after the outro, then we bring out Samuel L. Jackson to talk to Tony Stark about joining the
Now let me tell you something. If you do go see Spider-Man in the movie theater, stay until the camera shuts off.
Stay until the camera shuts off.
Some of the novices got up after the first post-credit scene and missed the better one.
There were two.
You stay until the camera turns off.
Man, I remember when. Well, maybe not when they first started doing post-credit scenes.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was the first post-credit scene I remember.
Okay, I don't know if that's the first one I remember, but I remember I started staying around in theaters till the credits were over. And that's why they do it. They want to get all the credits out, I guess. But
well, they're a little reward.
Usually when I go to a movie now, I always wait until the credits are over before I get up and leave.
Especially if it's Marvel, you gotta.
It also avoids the crowd. If you just sit in your seat for a little bit longer, you're not stuck in that line of people.
No, you're not.
Unless they all waited around too, which they might. Anyway.
But yeah.
All right, so I think we're going to call it a night. So thank you, folks, for hanging around. We will see you on our next show as soon as I find the screen that says the show is over. Here it is. All right, good night, everybody.
Peace.
You stuck around till after the credits.
Yeah, they did.
You knew we were going to do it. We had to after that conversation, right?
And, I gotta say, like, the stuff they pulled with Ahsoka at the 7th season of the Clone Wars, like,
yes,
some of that was, like, amazing.
That was pretty awesome.
Like, her fight with
Darth Maul?
With Darth Maul, holy crap, yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff.
That was great. Have you seen Rebels yet?
No, I have not seen Rebels yet.
Yeah, Rebels. Oh God, Rebels is worth it for the episode where oh yeah, I can't spoilers. Anyway, yeah.
All right,
Now-
folks. I think we
Now
can
we're gonna
actually be done.
Shut the camera off.
Ah.
Until the camera's off, don't leave.